Well, where are you right now? Where are you? It's a koan. It's a koan that's just as good as who am I, as where am I. So I want to talk about the placeless place and the pathless path. This is a extension of some of the talks I've been doing, the appreciations I've been doing about Dogen's Genjokoan. It's a teaching from the Zen Master Dogen about actualizing the fundamental point. The fundamental point is to see your life as the life of the Buddha, to see your life as the awakened life. So how do we see our life as the awakened life? This life, right now, right here, sitting in these chairs and this cushion, being in this space together. This is the awakened life. It doesn't look like something else. It looks like this. But do we experience it in the way that awakened beings throughout the ages have described, awakeness, right? To not be defined by our personalities, by our conditioning, by our self-sense, and by our normative notions of time and space. From our Buddhist perspective, these are all limiting beliefs that really keep us from experiencing ourselves in our full potential, our full reality, actually. Okamura, in Realizing Genjokoan, which I'm kind of appreciating these days, says, nothing is meaningless when we have our own place and path. Our own place and path. So you could say that this Buddhist practice, or Zen practice, is about actualizing our true self. You can call that person, just because I want 3 P's and make it alliterative. Our true person, and then our true place, and our true path. Right? But we have conditioned or false notions of ourself, our person, and our place, and our path. So, sticking with person just for a moment, we know that the core Zen koan, or question, is who am I? Who am I? The core koan for us in our Zen lineage is Joshu's Mu. A monk asked Master Joshu, does this dog have Buddha nature? Joshu answered, Mu. Yeah. The monk is asking, does this dog have Buddha nature? All the scriptures tell us that all sentient beings are awakened and have Buddha nature. But the monk doesn't feel that way. I don't feel like I have Buddha nature. I don't feel awake. I don't feel unconditioned. I feel very limited and defined and afflicted and suffering in all the reactive ways that I don't want to be. Right? So a traditional Buddhist teacher, you could say, would say, well, yes, of course you have Buddha nature. Of course you dog, you have Buddha nature. But our Zen teaching doesn't say that. The Zen teacher says, Mu. And Mu means, literally, it means does not have. Okay. So what's he doing? He's negating the whole concept of having a nature. There's no self at all. So this is why we say true self is no self. True self is no self. Now we can understand this conceptually, but Zen practice is about experiencing it experientially. to really experience yourself as a big self, which is not limited to your small self. So having these definitions, this conditioned understanding of who we are, is a big part of how we create this false identity, you could say, this limited experience, right? And another way is in having these limited and fixed understandings of our place and our path. So, where are you right now? Well, sitting in this room in the Shambhala Center. Yeah, that's true, right? It's not untrue. It's not an illusion. We're in Boulder, Colorado. At least those of us in this room are in Boulder, Colorado. We have people in Rochester, Minnesota, and in the White Elephant in, is it outside of Tucson, Sarkio? Yeah, outside of Tucson. Shoen is up in the mountains. Padma Renke is outside of Longmont. Kosan and Cindy are in Lafayette or Louisville. Roddy is in North Boulder. Yeah, we're all in our place, right? And really our kind of unconscious normative consciousness, unconscious normative consciousness, is that we're fixed here. This is where we are, and we're nowhere else. Okay? Right? That we don't extend beyond this place. So we want to use this as a koan. Am I really limited to this? Yeah, because you have to recognize that, our sense of place, this unconscious location, you could say, locating ourselves in this place, brings with it all sorts of kind of ideas about, well, how I'm supposed to behave and who I am and what my relations are. How far away I am from other people, how far away they are, and thus perhaps how influential I might be to them. Maybe our loved ones or our parents are far from us, and this impacts our sense of our connection to them. Suffering on the other side of the world, warfare in other places, so far away from us. But is it really? Are they really? So this can be a koan for us to really open up to what we might truly experience, to be a more connected reality. Yeah, so this place, we understand it in a number of ways. Our home, our abode, our location, our coordinates in time and space, even our body. Okay. So the Zen Dharma invites us into a very different understanding of these things, a very different experience of these things. Right, Dogen in the Genjokoan talks about being in the center of our experience, or always in the center of our experience, or our perspective, you could say, is always kind of has this fixed point from which we see the world, the same way we're in a boat in the middle of the ocean and we see, perhaps islands and coastlines and shores, not in the middle of the ocean, but kind of maybe in the middle of a lake is a better way to put it, because we see shorelines around the outside and we see the horizon. So we always have that kind of centered and fixed perspective, but our true nature is not fixed in that perspective. So when we use these terms like non-duality or aperspectival, is another word that's used, it's getting at this condition of consciousness, this deeper dimension of consciousness, which is not fixed in a point perspective. Okay, so can we experience that? Yeah, the answer is yes, we can experience that. This situatedness that we kind of infer about ourselves being in a certain place, it really reinforces our opinions and our judgments, right? We tend to valorize our own perspectives. Maybe that's obvious, but I find myself sometimes humbled by just, merely, for example, after an argument with, with my wife, just merely listening to how she's seeing the situation and realizing, oh, yeah, I missed all of that because I was looking at it from this side and you're looking at it from this side. We're looking at exactly the same thing. Both of the perspectives are completely valid. So all of the opinions and all of the judgments and all of the emotional responses, tend to be based on that perspective that you have, that experience that you have. But others are, usually seeing something that you're missing. So there's never an absolute truth to anything. There's nothing absolutely fixed about anything. I've joked before about how Bernie Glassman called even the Buddhist Four Noble Truths the Four Noble Opinions. There happened to be a certain perspective on things like suffering and poisons and drives, and also on path, which I'll get to in a little bit, right? Because the fourth noble truth is the Eightfold Path. So, okay, but sticking with place for a little bit longer. In the same way that we have our koan of person, right? Who am I? Does this dog have Buddha nature? We have a lot of koans of place. Those of you who are in the koan curriculum, have encountered some of these. Here's one of my favorites. Book of Equanimity, case 60. Ryu Tetsuma, an old woman, arrived at Isan's place, and Isan said, "Old cow, you've come." Ryu Tetsuma said, "There's a big feast on Mount Tai tomorrow. Are you going?" Isan lay himself down. At that, Ryu Tetsuma left. So, this is great. We need to know that, like, Mount Tai was somewhere like, 800 miles from where this conversation took place. Mount Tai, has anybody been to Mount Tai in China? I think Showen might have been. Oh, he's not there. No, not been to Mount Tai. Taishan it's a mountain in northeast of China, and I actually, have you been there, Tyler?
I think I saw it a couple years ago on a map, and then I said I want to go there because my name's Tyler.
Because your name is Tyler.
Yeah, so it's like Ty. I was like, I want to go there.
I love it. Well, let's take this as a final synchronicity to encourage you to go. And I've gone, and it's marvelous. Yeah, it's marvelous. I lived in China for a year, and I was before my Zen practice and before any Buddhist practice I did. So I was in my early 20s, and I lived in China for a year. But I was just drawn to these sacred mountains, and it's one of the 5 sacred mountains of China, Taishan. And I climbed it, and then I spent overnight there, and I watched the sun come up there. gorgeous and mystical and profound. Great. So yes, go. If there's one thing that comes out of this, Tyler, for your pilgrimage to Mount Tai, it'll have done its job. And here's, and they're far away. So I think they're probably in the south of China, Ryutetsuma and Isan. And she comes over, and they're both very awakened beings. You know, Isan is a Zen master of quite repute. And Ryutetsuma is also, although she's a woman and wasn't allowed to live in the monastery, was recognized as a very awakened being. And she kind of frolics over, and she would always have these really kind of, frolicsome conversations with Master Izan, because they really met each other at a very high level. And she goes, "Oh, there's a party. There's a party on Mount Tai tomorrow. You want to go?" That's like saying, "Oh, there's a party on the moon tomorrow. You want to go?" So what does place mean to her? Right? She's like completely free. It's like, hey, you want to go? Let's go. Now, how does Isan meet her? He doesn't say, "Are you crazy?" But he also doesn't say, "Yeah, let's go." He actually meets her at an even, I don't know, in a way it's an even more lively.
Leveled it up.
Yeah, he kind of levels it up. You could say he just lays down. Just lays down. As if to say, giving him some words, "We're here already. Here's the party. Here we are." And then I think Ryutetsuma kind of levels it up even more. He's like, "Okay." And she walks away. Here, there, right? We don't have to make anything special. It's all special right here, right now. Every moment is special. Every moment is special. So, don't think it's somewhere else. Don't think you are somewhere else. Because that's what we do. We're actually in our situating ourselves, in a certain place. We're really kind of orienting towards here and there, and we have an abstraction that we've created in terms of space. Right? But this limits our consciousness of ourselves. With our Zen practice, we just apply ourselves with great intensity to this here-ness, to the point where we lose this here-ness, and we're no longer fixed. And that's what they were doing. We have another koan of place, Master Jizo, who actually has a lot of koans of place. He asked Shuzan, "Where do you come from?" Shuzan said, "From the south." Jizo said, "How is Buddhism in the south these days?" Shuzan said, "There's extensive discussion." Jizo said, "How can that compare to me here, planting the fields and making rice to eat?" Shuzan said, "What can you do about the world?" Jizo said, "What do you call the world?" So there's a few kind of levels to this one too, as it kind of notches up. We oftentimes have these this Zen question from a master, where are you coming from? And it's usually a probe to understand how well they understand, say, the Dharma or emptiness. And Shuzan he kind of bites. He says, "Well, I come from the south," which is a literal translation. Now with this, you don't really know whether he gets it or not, because sometimes people will give the literal translation, but then in their subsequent conversation, they reveal that they aren't fixed on it, or they might reveal that they are fixated on the form. And in this one, he gets really caught, because Jesus says, "Well, how is Buddhism in the south these days?" And Shuzan gets all up in his head. "Oh, well, there's extensive discussion about the Dharma, and they have these kind of dogmas and these kind of thoughts." Okay? So it's kind of like somebody maybe, coming up and coming here and say, "Where did you come from?" And they said, "Oh, I came from Alabama." And you say, "Oh, what's the politics like in Alabama these days?" It goes, "Oh my God, they're really, they're really right wing. There's a lot of MAGA stuff going on there. You know, what the teacher, what the person asking the question really wants to see is, are you opposing separation with other people, or do you feel yourself really connected to other people? Okay, so Shuzan's kind of really revealing that he isn't really experiencing himself as being connected or one, you know, with other people. He's asking this. And so Jizo then kind of gives him, you know, this teaching. It's like, well, all that discussion, how can that compare to me here, planting the fields and making rice to eat? Okay. And somebody comes to you and says, oh, all those people in all those MAGA people down in Alabama are like doing all these terrible things and saying all these terrible things. Well, I should say saying all these things that I disagree with. Let's just put it that way. And can you say, well, you know, what about us, you know, planting our fields here and serving our families and taking care of our community? Okay. How about that? How about that? Isn't that a more valuable thing to be focused on than what people elsewhere are saying? Elsewhere. So Shuzan gets a little bit thrown off by this and says, well, what can you do about the world? What can you do about the world? In another translation of this koan, he says, you know, what about the three worlds? Right? So, you know, what about the Buddhist dharma? What about the world? And Jesus says, what do you call the world? Isn't the world this right here? Isn't it the bowl of rice in front of me? Isn't it the field I have to plant? Right? You know, too often we engage with the world through our ideas of it and not through our experience of it. And our Zen practice is rigorously bringing us back to our experience of the world. And when we really do bring ourselves back intensely to our experience of the world, which is only in this moment, in this here and now, can we open up our understanding and open up our experience of ourselves to be intimately connected with all beings, here and there. So we don't want to fall into thinking that we're limited by this particular geospatial experience of ourselves in these bodies, in this place. You know, we might in fact be interdimensional. A lot of the new quantum physics are coming up with, at least in my kind of study of it, it's like, yeah, it looks like the multiverse is the most probable explanation of, you know, the different observations and theories in cosmology. Okay. So, you know, it's probable that we're not limited to this place, actually. So how do we experience ourselves as placeless, this place of no place? Okay, well, I just kind of, you know, said it. It's our practice of zazen, which is the practice of shikan. Shikantaza is our word for just sitting. So it's so intensely sitting, so intensely embodying, you know, our presence, intensifying our quality of presence and experiencing so deeply our quality of presence that we lose the distinction between inside and outside, we lose the distinction between self and other, we lose the distinction between now and then. You know, all that starts to shimmer and cohere into a greater, you know, oneness, which is just this. Okay. So zazen is shikantaza, which is only active sitting, but we can also shikan sweep, and shikan breathe, and shikan speak, and shikan drive. So only active driving, sitting, sweeping, whatever it is, just apply yourself with everything you have, body and mind, into what you're doing. In that, you reveal the placeless place. You find yourself in this placeless place, which is nowhere, which is now, here. I like practiced Zen for like 30 years before somebody told me, did you ever notice how the word nowhere breaks up into now, here? I was like, what? How did I miss that? And then I told that to my teacher, and he said, wow. He's 20 years older than me. He was like, oh wow, I never noticed that either. Did you ever notice that?
Because of the Neil Young album.
Because the Neil, but
Everyone
everybody,
knows this place is nowhere.
everyone knows this place is nowhere. Oh my God, Neil Young had it. I missed that one. Did you know that one, Cindy?
No.
No, okay, good. This is the first time you're getting that?
I think so.
All right.
Or I maybe heard it before and I forgot.
Okay,
That's
great.
possible.
All right. Yeah, nowhere, 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 nowhere. In the Genjokoan, so I'll just go a little longer. Yeah, a fish swims in the ocean, and no matter how far it swims, there's no end to the water. A bird flies in the sky, and no matter how far it flies, there's no end to the sky. However, the fish and the bird have never left their elements. When their activity is large, their field is large. When their need is small, their field is small. Thus, each of them totally covers its full range, and each of them totally experiences its realm. Well, another translation of this last line is, in this way, each fish and each bird uses the whole of space and vigorously acts in every place. Vigorously acts in every place. Okay. A few weeks ago, I talked about participation as the key to our practice, to fully participate in your life. This is vigorously acting in every place. So when we do this, we find that we're not extending ourselves out into the universe, moving from this place to that place. We find that our environment is inseparable from ourselves. So you could say we are not even an individual in a place. We are no one, nowhere. Okay. Okay. We can have the same sort of appreciation about path. Okay, and I was going to talk about that, but I feel I've gone on long enough here, so maybe I'll talk next time about that path. But we have these same sorts of feelings, just to prompt you on some of your own reflection on it, on path. We have these same ideas about our paths in life, right? Whether that's our career, whether it's our journey, whether it's our healing path, whether it's our developmental path, whether it's the Eightfold Path, our Buddhist path. We have notions of our path. And our ideas about our path can kind of imply certain things like stages and advancement and beginnings and ends. And that's one way to understand it. But the deeper way to understand it is that this path itself is empty. All of these paths are empty as well. And we really actualize ourselves and our true nature when we recognize the emptiness of our path. So I'll end with this quote from Genjokoan. When we make this very place our own, our practice becomes the actualization of reality. When we make this path our own, our activity naturally becomes actualized reality. This path, this place, is neither big nor small, neither self nor others. It has not existed before this moment, nor has it come into existence now. Therefore, the reality of all things is thus. Okay.